Welcome to a new era of wrestling podcasts, where the hot takes, fantasy booking, nostalgic trips, and everything that happens in your day-to-day life always comes back to the squared circle. It's the Everything is Pro Wrestling podcast with Mike D Silva, Josh Flanagan, and Nick Flanagan.
And we are back. Everything is Pro Wrestling podcast. Mike D here with Flanny, joined by a very, very special guest, the man, the myth, the legend. Listen, I would run through all the titles this guy has, but I don't think we have enough time. All right. Big Kaz, brother. Thank you, man. Thank you for joining us.
Mike, thanks for having me. I know we've been talking about doing this for a long time, so I'm glad we could finally make the time to make it happen. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
No, man, we're excited. Obviously when we talk as far as like media goes, people involved in the wrestling world and the hip hop world, you can't have that conversation without talking about Kaz. So with that being said, let's get right into it. We were talking a little bit before the interview, how crazy busy you are right now, not just with everything going on and all the jobs you have, but with this event coming up in the next few weeks. We're talking about WaleMania. So let's give people who might not be familiar with it a little background on how WaleMania began.
Man, so I'll tell you this, Wale and I have been friends for as long as I can remember, ever since I even got into the hip hop media industry. I'm a Blog Era baby, so through watching the class of the Wale's, the Drakes, the Kendricks, and Coles come up. I was at the Source magazine at the time. And I did a story on Wale, and he had came to my school, and we figured out how much we had in common, and we just struck up a friendship ever since then, right? And for years, we would go to, or at least just run into each other at, All-Star weekends and Super Bowls and, Grammys and all this stuff. And obviously all these big tentpole cultural events always have stuff going on around them, but never really for wrestling, right? Like at one point it was just go to WrestleMania, go to the indie shows, maybe you go to the Hall of Fame or whatever after party that WWE throws after WrestleMania, but there never really was something for like fans and friends and even the talent to really just go and kick back and enjoy themselves at. And that's kind of how WaleMania was born. The first time we did it was in Santa Clara, WrestleMania 31, I want to say. And it's interesting, man. I was doing it with it was originally being done with the founder of MLW, Court Bauer, who was a longtime friend of mine, former writer over at WWE, but an incredible wrestling mind in his own right. And it's funny, we were literally just talking about this the other day, and I had forgotten, the first time we did this, it was at a lounge in Santa Clara. And I mean, we had Scott Hall, Samoa Joe, Jeff Hardy, Jim Ross, MVP, a bunch of guys, Dave Meltzer, a bunch of other guys, and Chris Hero. And really, the first, I always call him the first unofficial guest of honor, was Rey Mysterio. And if you remember around that time, Rey Mysterio, was in the WWE, and that unfortunate accident that happened in the ring had just happened, right? And he was definitely going through a rough sort of he was definitely going through a rough time at that time, and WaleMania was like the first time a lot of people got to see him and hug him and fill him with love. And I just remember that energy and that camaraderie between everybody back there, in addition to what Wale was trying to bring to it, as far as like just his star power and just his fandom and his ability to bring his audiences to something that he really enjoyed. So, I'll never forget that one being extremely special. And just as the years gone on, every year, we just kept doing it at wherever WrestleMania was at. So we had done Santa Clara, Orlando, New Orleans, Dallas,
Yeah.
LA, New York, and now we're doing Philly in a few weeks. And I would say the New York WaleMania was the one where I really started to see the vision of what this thing could truly be, because it was the first time I had like fully taken over like the curation of the joint. I had just finished my tour duty at WWE as a creative writer. So I felt like I had a lot of good connections over at the company, made some great relationships, and felt like, let me try this out and see how we could sort of make this happen. So We did. And you know, Booker T was our first guest of honor. And at that time, he was going into the Hall of Fame for the second time as a member of Harlem Heat. And also it was, you know, Kofi Kingston's Kofi Mania, right? Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
he had all that momentum like going into WrestleMania week. And so it went from a party to like a real pep rally for Kofi. Be like,
Yeah.
yo, man, we got Booker T, the last, you know, black main eventer that had that chance at WrestleMania with Kofi Kingston, the guy who was next up. And everybody just, you could just feel the emotion in the room. You know, like it's funny because wrestling is the show at the end of the day, it's scripted and it's predetermined and all of that stuff, but there was real emotion in that room
Of
that
course.
night. And, you know, just looking back at it, I just think of, you know, Brody Lee being there, a good friend of mine, and Shad
Mm.
Gaspard, and guys that aren't with us anymore. And, you know, every year since then, we just remember just how much fun it is, how much of a cultural moment it becomes now, because I feel like when it comes to pro wrestling, or what I felt like when it came to pro wrestling, a lot of the folks that look like us or come from backgrounds like us don't necessarily are spoken to when it comes to this form of entertainment, and we're huge fans of it. We grew up on it. We're hip-hop heads, right? Like
Right.
there's elements of hip-hop and pro wrestling that are so intertwined with one another that it's obvious why young black folks or young folks of color would be huge wrestling fans. So I'll say all that to say, man, it doesn't get done without Wale. It doesn't get off the ground without Court Bauer. But, you know, the evolution of it has just become something I, you know, always wanted to see, but it still shocks me how big it's become every single year.
Well, it's become a mainstay of Mania weekend. You know, like previously, you'd have the indie shows, right? You'd have WrestleCons. You know, you'd have the WWE events with the Hall of Fame and all that stuff. The NXT shows before it's become like the brand, the massive brand that it is now, right? But now it's Thursdays WaleMania. Like, you know, I've been to a couple of them. I was at Dallas. I was in Orlando, and for the WaleMania 2, I think it was the one in 2016, and
Mhm.
it's incredible because, like you said, it brings so many different cultures that is not your stereotypical wrestling fan, right? It's not like the wrestling guys, you know, like this is like the culture in the hip hop culture. And you brought it up and mentioned it doesn't really take off without the stardom of Wale. How much of like hip hop in general, how much of their influence, the hip hop community's influence, do you think has helped this current wrestling renaissance, if you will, with the mainstream?
I, at the risk of sounding like not humble,
Yeah, it's
um
okay. Go off, King. You
Pop your
deserve
I
it.
shit,
Come on.
bro,
can't.
man. Pop your shit,
If
bro.
Yeah.
I'm honest, bro, like I can't. I do believe there were so many talented people of color, black wrestlers, black talents throughout the wrestling industry, and that was our whole thing for the longest time. There were so many wrestlers out there, or so many talents out there that we really thought, like, man, these guys are incredible. Why aren't they being showcased? How isn't WWE seeing these people? And you
Right.
could ask certain folks, man, you know, there are wrestlers on WWE television, on AEW television right now that can honestly say, like, I don't think I would have got the looks that, you know, I would have got if it wasn't for Wale tweeting a video or
Mm-hmm.
hollering at Mark Henry or hollering at like certain folks within the company, just using the influence, you know, and that he had and that he still has. And I'll say, man, like, you know, it's I can't pretend that at least I'm not aware of the influence I have in the pro wrestling industry. It's weird to kind of talk about because I don't wrestle. I have immense respect for everybody who hops in the ring, and I think after like working at WWE, you get even more of a respect for the talent in there because they're the ones who truly put their bodies on the line. Those are the guys who are on the road 300 days a year. Like it is
Crazy.
not a joke what they do. So like I never like I always get uneasy when people are like, oh man, like don't you feel like you've had a heavy hand in a lot of the, you know, success of a lot of black talents in WWE, or at least, you know, any of that. And I'll let them say that. I'll let the people that I've worked with or helped out or I'm friends with or I've championed say that type of stuff. But I have entirely too much respect for the game and too much respect for the people that really do this on a night in and night out basis. When it's not as easy in a big city where WrestleMania is. When you're in like Temecula, California
Yeah.
on a random Saturday afternoon, you know what I mean? Like it's not
Yeah.
as easy to get up as it is to get up for Philadelphia when the whole world is watching, you know? So it's I mean, but I gotta say, man, like it's not hard to see the benefit that talent gets after WaleMania, man. Like there's moments that folks get up on that stage and you'll see thousands of fans be like, wow, I didn't know such and such was this charismatic. Oh man,
Hmm.
this guy's amazing. We love this guy. Like, I mean, I feel like every year at Wale Mania, like somebody hops on that stage or has a moment where the perception of them changes.
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff gets worked into TV and it gets worked into their career. And like it's sort of like my goal is to make sure everybody gets over at Wale Mania, right? Like everybody comes and has a good time. I'll say this, Dallas, obviously we've had folks that, you know, Swerve Strickland's a great example. He popped up in New York City. You know what I mean? He had just got signed to NXT, but he was a good friend of mine and still is a good friend of mine. And to see where he was then and to see where he is now is a perfect example. In Dallas, we had Grayson Waller pull up in a Degrassi t-shirt and we just handed him the microphone and he just went in on the Dallas crowd. And everyone, and mind you, Grayson Waller was kind of on NXT, like he was just kind of here and there, but at that moment, everyone was like, "Yo, like this dude is he kind of got
Yeah.
the goods a little bit," and
Yeah.
you know, and he's kind of down with the culture a little bit as well, you know. But you wouldn't get that from the 15 minutes that you see him on TV. So I'll say, man, like it's always supposed to be fun. At the end of the day, I'm just a fan. I'm just somebody who is um grateful that the world of wrestling and the world of hip hop has embraced me and embraced my thoughts and embraced, our ability to kind of bring something. And this has always been our way to sort of give back to that.
Yeah, Kaz. I mean, it's important that you also receive your flowers though, because it's evident. I know you say you're a very humble guy. You don't want to speak on it, but it's very evident just based on the interactions that we see on social media, whether it be with with wrestlers or hip hop, people in the industry, people in media. Nobody has anything negative to say about you. So you come as a humble man, but we're well aware of the influence and the impact that you've had in the current product, in the bonding of the hip hop world and the wrestling world, man. It's a beautiful thing.
I appreciate that, man. It started with Wrestle Rap and my boy Emilio Sparks, where we started that podcast literally the week the WWE Network launched, and it just kind of felt like, man, there are so many opportunities that I thought were just like kind of being left on the table. And you know it always came from a point of view of just being a fan and being legitimate and not necessarily trying to be insincere in where we were coming from and all that. So I've made some incredible friends in the industry that support me and I support them. And it really is humbling though. I appreciate you saying that, man. Thank you.
Of course, brother.
And now, Kaz, I
Sorry,
know
excuse me.
Mike D had mentioned you receiving your flowers, which undoubtedly you deserve them. I want to think too, this year's program, and you're going to be honoring Shelton Benjamin. And you also mentioned, a little bit ago about the untimely passing of Shad and also Brody. How important is it to use this outlet of Wale Mania to give flowers to folks while they're still with us, while they're still active in the business, while they can still receive those flowers and really feel the impact that they've had on not only the wrestling community but the culture as a whole?
I think it's extremely important, man. And I feel like that's one thing us as a community does the best, right? Like a lot of times, in other cultures or just in other communities, we got to wait till somebody's dying or dead to be like, man, this guy was great. Let's, lift them up and all that type of stuff. But I think, I take this is kind of a weird sort of comparison, but I take sort of umbrance with, not umbrance, but I kind of follow the lead of like the BET Awards, right? Like everyone always got something to say about the BET Awards because it's the BET Awards. But one thing that they do incredibly well is that they always give flowers to people while they can still smell them. And I always felt like that was something that we could possibly do, especially given the weekend that we do it at. The love, the unique sort of love that Black wrestling fans give to our talents is different. You know how it is, man. Like it ain't the same when it comes from your peers and all that type of stuff is one thing, but when it comes from us, it's felt from a different level. I think last year or the past couple several years, I think we've done that the best, but I think last year was where it really sort of like hit home. We had Trinity Fatu as a guest of honor last year, and at the time, man, Trin would tell you like she still kind of wasn't sure where things were going career wise. Obviously, the falling out with WWE happened, and she wasn't really seen for a while, as that happened. So when we reached out to her, he'd be like, "Hey, man, like we would love to like honor you and just come and just don't expect anything. Just come have a good time, and we're just gonna just show you all this love." And it was amazing, man. And she was touched. And like the wrestlers are always extremely touched and humbled by it because they know, we give love different. And being able to have this opportunity, right? Like in most cases, you got to wait until you get into the WWE Hall of Fame or you already wrestled a million matches already, or, something tragic happens, unfortunately. And a lot of times you don't need to do that just to be like, yo, we grew up with this person or we've seen this person give their body, give their life, give everything for our entertainment, at least for one night. Let's just show them how much we appreciate them. And I think just in the years past too, man, like just thinking of it's just thinking of all the folks that we've lost that have come to WaleManias before. Scott Hall was at the first WaleMania and had a blast, and he was somebody who really supported our joint, and we love him so much.
Virgil too, recently.
Virgil as well, somebody who came to a bunch of WaleManias and loved it, and always came to kick it. Shaq Gaspard, my man, and he is somebody, we used to talk Knicks basketball all the time, man. Like that was my dog. And, losing him and having that moment in New York, and Brody, obviously, it's after those moments, it really made me realize how much it was important to get all of us together, because a lot of times WaleMania, wrestling is such a weird industry. You're traveling all the time. There's always, things going on in everybody's world. It's the one time of the year where a lot of us all get together, and you might not see that person again until next year. Or, if you're not in that same company, you know what I mean? You might not see them at all. So I think, not to make it, morbid or anything at all, but like, just in my own personal opinion, I felt like experiencing those moments and just seeing, after they passed, how many people were talking about, man, the last time I saw this guy was at WaleMania, and it was such an amazing moment. It's a lasting moment. And I want to make sure that we don't have to do that. So, last year we did it with Trinity. We did a sort of a surprise for Big E, where we sort of like got folks together and really, because you think I'm humble. He's somebody who never praise for anything.
He's the best, man.
He's a truly, truly phenomenal human being, and being able, to sort of give him his flowers with his, entering career sort of in question, not necessarily knowing what could happen in his future, was really important to all of us, because we love E. WaleMania is nothing without him, to be completely honest. He's somebody who's been a big champion of me, been a big champion of Wale, obviously. And it was obviously the move to make. So this year with Shelton Benjamin, the guy that I was a huge fan of growing up with, I still am. Got to see him perform with the Hurt Business. And he is somebody who has an incredibly lengthy, real deal history, going back from being a Minnesota Golden Gopher to being in that incredible class of OVW alongside John Cena, Randy Orton, and Batista, and Brock Lesnar, and all these guys, having an incredible match with Shawn Michaels and Triple H, being the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion before Gunther broke that record. I mean, obviously the Honky Tonk record was there, but the person who held the title longest before that was Shelton Benjamin. So I mean, I think he's one of those people who kind of flies under the radar as far as like his sort of living legend status, and he can still go, which is,
Yeah.
which makes
Yeah,
this fun.
Yeah, he
So,
looks like he's in incredible shape.
bro.
right, right,
Kaz, I
which
shared a
make
clip with you on Twitter a few weeks back. We did a convention here. I got a chance to speak with him.
Mhm.
And I mean, first of all, the dude's arms are bigger than my whole, torso.
Yeah,
But I asked him about WaleMania, and to make your point about flowers while they can still smell them, and the look on his face when I brought that up, it was a genuine like sense of pride. And he
yeah,
even says it in the clip that I shared with you. He said, that it means a lot because he's at a weird point in his career where like, he's out of WWE and he's in a transitional period. So to get that respect and to receive that honor and to have so many people publicly like, which is kind of crazy to say because like you said, this dude's a legend. You know what I mean? Like he's done so much for the business, and I got to witness it in real time. Like somebody talk about it, the pride that he carries with it. It's almost as if I was telling him he was going into the WWE Hall of Fame because he carries that much respect. So that's a complete, it's just a sign of what you guys have created in what, just under 10 years or about 10 years now.
yeah. Next year would be our 10-year anniversary. If it wasn't for COVID, it would be our 10th WaleMania, but
Right.
next year would be the 10-year anniversary of it. And I'll tell you, man, when I got to the honor of calling Shelton and being like, hey, man, like we do this every year. It would be an honor if we could sort of have you as our guest of honor this year. He was truly touched. Like he was truly, it's not the Hall of Fame, but like it's kind of like our Hall of Fame,
It's like, yeah,
right?
it
But
is. Yeah.
And I think from a timing, even from a timing standpoint, I love that, WaleMania is Thursday and you have the Hall of Fame Friday. It feels
yes.
right to be able to honor those individuals who their time, hopefully Shelton's time should and will come with the WWE Hall of Fame. But to your point earlier, Cass, why wait? Why can't we create those spaces and opportunities to honor those folks? And how much more, how much more, and how much more meaningful is it for that call to come from you, Kaz, as opposed to someone who he might not have a rapport or relationship with, to be able to honor them and give them the flowers they deserve in a timely manner, and also kind of just take the culture back and take the reins back. I love that.
Yeah, man. And I think us as a people, we do that better than anybody, right? Like we celebrate our own better than anybody else could. So, Shelton is a guy who has always been wonderful to me. He's always been a big supporter of WaleMania, always super duper humble. And, being able to, give him that call and just the words that he said back to me about it is something I'll cherish for the rest of my life because it really did put it into perspective. Like, wow, we helped build this thing that, people that I, look up to and idolize and just appreciate as talents, really take as a true, genuine honor. So we can't wait to celebrate Shelton. We got some big surprises for him that night. And I think I'm not aiming for waterworks, but if we get some, it's always fun. But
Hell yeah.
it's gonna be really fun, man. And everybody loves Shelton. You can't find anybody in the industry that can say a bad word about the guy. So getting tapping in with folks and being like, hey, we're doing this for Shelton is one of the easiest calls you can make for people. So folks that are going to be in there, you're going to really be in for a treat when we get to honoring Shelton Benjamin at WaleMania.
I mean, that's a perfect way to promote it because as somebody who has been to multiple WaleManias and I will be there this year in Philly, I know I'm very much looking forward to it. We would love, I know you're a busy guy. I don't want to take too much of your time. I would love to get into the current product, which just means we'll have to have you back. We'll have to have you back on.
Man.
Yo, I got time, man. We could roll a little bit if you want to go, man. I got a little bit of time. A little bit.
All right, bro. All right, yeah, that's fine. Flanny, I know you got
a couple quick hitters I want to throw at you, Cass. So the first one is, think of a current, rapper, artist, man or woman who you think would be amazing to make that jump to the WWE and become a superstar.
Like that.
Oh, like actually wrestle?
Yeah, like actually get in the ring
and Bad Bunny doesn't count.
Get their Pat McAfee on, like really get in there and squabble up.
Oh my God, I forgot this dude's name, bro. It's killing me, but it starts with a J. But he's super like swole as hell. He does stuff with Daniel Garcia. He does like backflips off the stage and stuff like that. He's a wild dude. I forgot his name, but it's gonna kill me. But man, we just saw Travis Scott on Raw this past Monday. He is somebody whose energy, I think, translates to the world of WWE. I talked to my boy Neil Lowy a lot, who is the head of WWE Music, and there's certain artists I'm always just like, man, like I know it's easy to make packages to like rock songs and stuff like that, but like LaFlame, Travis Scott, like there's some things that he can make something happen. So whether it's through that, whether it's through getting in the ring somehow, I mean, he's not as he's no bigger than Bad Bunny, so I mean, who could who could mask that? But yeah, I still think there's a world where we get like a Cardi B in the ring somehow,
Okay.
some way, man. Like I
Yeah,
still think there's a
she seems perfect for it. The
I
promo
mean,
she cuts on IG
she
like
just needs to,
she's
she
perfect
needs
for
to
it.
find a way to take the IG rants, PG them up a little bit. Unless all she does is the vignettes where they edit it and they can, bleep it out and stuff. But I don't know if she's made for
right.
network.
She's
Maybe the
good. And
Netflix
she's
deal.
a
She might be
fan.
the one.
She's a
Oh,
fan too.
yeah, she's a fan, and on top of that, she's a pro, man. Like
Yeah.
she can clean. She's been
Yeah.
on network TV many a
Oh yeah.
time. She can
Oh,
Oh
clean
yeah.
herself up for the network if she has to. But who knows, man? I feel like in the future we'll see a lot more of that, especially as WWE continues to be mainstream. We got The Rock on the board. He got taking it to Netflix. I think the sky's the limit for as far as the inclusion of the culture in it.
And I got one more I want to throw at you quickly. I want to kind of bring two of your worlds together. So I want to bring the Knicks in for this one. So if you had to start a faction of all-time great Knicks, five, 4 or 5 players and then a coach, who would you throw in the mix?
All right, I will start off with my point guard, JB. JB is the best point guard in my Knicks lifetime, which isn't saying much, but it does say a lot because he's been an absolute baller. I got to throw Melo in there. Obviously, Melo is somebody who took on the challenge of being a star, and that is something that you need to have.
He's not afraid to throw some hands too if he needs to.
Not afraid to throw some
Yeah.
hands. We see what went down with the Nuggets way back when. I'm gonna throw in my boy Allen Houston, man. I love Allen Houston. He's the homie, the OG. Always been super kind to me as well. I'm gonna throw a Big Pat. I can't have a Nick stable without Big Pat in the lineup. And the last spot is tough for me, right? Like I think there's a space there where Latrell Sprewell gets
I was
in
gonna
there. That's
say, man,
another
you
guy.
gotta
go
get
Spree,
Spreewell in
man.
there choking out
Gotta
go
coaches.
Spree.
You know what I
You
mean?
need that wild
Spree's my
card.
guy. Spree's my guy, man. Spree is a sweet person, man. Like that's a wonderful human being. That's my guy, Spree. So I'll probably throw Spree in there as well as my Knicks wrestling faction. And I guess coaching the team, man. I want to say Tibbs, but like I don't know if Tibbs got like the great one-liners to sort of be the manager, right? He's
Yeah.
much more of a taskmaster. You feel me? Like he's like he's not he doesn't really have the Bobby the Brain Paul Heyman sort of swag that I think I'd want my manager to have. So I'll probably go with like Pat Riley. You know
Gotta
what
be
I
Pat.
mean?
It's gotta be
Like
Pat.
Yeah.
Pat's the guy with the swag. Like, I feel like if he had the oversized cell phone like Paulie
Yes.
Dangerously and the slick back hair, they'll fit in easily.
He can
So
rock that Brother Love white suit, no problem. He's
he
got it.
probably could. He's the smoothest. Like, granted, he went to Miami. It's been rough as a Knicks fan to watch him flourish over there. But without a doubt, he's the smoothest head coach we ever had in New York City. So I need my managers and my mouthpiece to be able to be smooth like that. So I'm gonna go with Big Pat Riley.
Yeah, he's smooth. Yeah, he always seems like he's ready to close a deal or to work out, some type of he'll be getting his faction to the top some way or another. That's for sure.
Facts.
Kaz, I want to wrap with this because it is arguably, in our opinion, one of the greatest just kind of storylines in history. Where do you rank this current Bloodline story, dating all the way back? All the iterations of it, including Jay becoming main event Jey Uso and the Sami Zayn, and then now including The Rock. Where do you rank this as all-time storylines when it comes to the WWE? Just in general.
I mean, it's got to be up at the top, right? And it's at the point where you're almost I don't think you're giving it the right umbrance by calling it a storyline anymore. We're in the
Right.
Bloodline era. It's an
True.
era at this point,
True.
right? Like
Yeah.
from the day he came back at SummerSlam and rock the destroy everyone and leave t-shirt. It's been just a steady upward trajectory ever since. And you got to think of all the fruit that's been bared since they gave Roman the Rock, and not the Rock as in Dwayne, but gave him like the ball and ran with it. He is, no matter what you think about his schedule, no matter what you think about his appearances, no matter what you think about Roman Reigns, he is the top guy in the most profitable era of pro wrestling in history. It's undoubted. Men lie, women lie, the numbers don't.
Yep.
When the numbers have been popping, the dude that has been at the top of the marquee, the person who has been main eventing almost all of the major shows, and the person who in kayfabe is at the top of the food chain has been Roman Reigns. So you got to put this current Bloodline era up there with Hulkamania, with the NWO, with the Austin 316, with like, you know, the People's Champ era, like the corporate champ, all that type of stuff, like the authority era, like all of these eras of sports entertainment. The Bloodline era not only has been profitable, but I think from a critical standpoint, from a standpoint of just enjoying the product, it's giving you something to tune into. Me and my girl were always like, you know, me and my wife are like, yeah, it's Bloodline Fridays. Let's turn it on. You know what I mean? Like,
well, Kaz, I think you're making the great point there. It's like, you know, you could, because people had always made the argument about Cena, right? The Cena era. But I think there was a generation of people that tuned Cena, that era, out, right? A little bit. Because we always held the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era. We always held them at such a high standard.
We done with the 90s, bro. We done with the 90s. That is the phrase this year. We done with the 90s.
We done with the 90s. I know they're hating on 90s basketball now, too. And I've seen that going around TikTok.
We missed the memo, Mike. We got to switch the gear up now.
Yeah, I know. We got to switch the gear up.
I'll play. I say it in jest. But
of course.
You make a great point. You make a great point about the Cena era. But I think Cena was kind of in this sort of transitional period for the business in general.
Right.
Where, you know, he was probably the only person fit to sort of like carry the game on his shoulders at that time, because, you know, they were going through many changes. They were going through many sort of ideations of the company. And I think Cena, for his benefit, like he took a lot of shit, right? Like he took a lot of chances as well, that I don't think, you know, Roman was afforded to take, that Austin was afforded to take, that all these people were afforded to take. They needed a clean-cut superhero white meat dude to, no matter if they cheer you, they boo you, as long as they're showing up and making any sort of, you know, emotional connection to you, they were rocking with it. Whereas I think the Bloodline era sort of, you know, benefit from here is, I think Roman has figured out a way to not only be an interesting character, but to be a character that is, I think, mostly cheered, right? Like he's
he's the guy you kind of love to hate, you know, and WWE has so many of those now. But that was kind of like, you know, I know we're done with the 90s, but the point I was trying to make is I feel like we're back there now. Like there was a point where we weren't there, but we're back now where it's like, you feel like you need to see what's going to happen next week. You know, even think about SmackDown on Friday, where it was old school. I know it wasn't on purpose, network TV and all that, but like they cut, you know, Cody smacks The Rock and it gets cut. And I feel like those are the things that were kind of missing, that we're back to now. And it's because of this Bloodline era. It's so deeply rooted in the wrestling lore, in the family. And it's brought back a lot of the casual, average people that maybe had tuned out for quite some time, you know. So
they're telling great stories, man.
Yeah,
they're telling stories that don't just end at the pay-per-view or the premium live event, right? Like everything sort of rolls into something else, right? Like now you got Jey Uso, who's a megastar in his own right, getting ready to sort of elevate into that next level. Obviously, The Rock not just being a part of the story, but being the de facto new Vince. Like you're the on-screen, you're basically the on-screen authority figure now. And the Bloodline, which was already the strongest sort of faction in the game, now has legitimate strength in it, because, you know, The Rock, the real high chief of the NYE family, is on the board of directors and is very legitimately, as much as the Hollywood Rock era we like to mythologize and love how much, he is way more for real the Hollywood Rock
Oh yeah,
now than he was
yeah.
then.
Like the
Right. So
real, yeah.
now it's legit. He is legitimately one of the most powerful people in entertainment. He's legitimately one of the richest men in entertainment. He's legitimately a person who has football leagues and drinks and tequila and movies and everything. Like, it is as real as it gets. So just having him not just be a part of it, but have a real stake in the success of WWE and just pro wrestling in general and the health of pro wrestling is only going to elevate the product as much. So the timing couldn't be better. The quality in the ring has been good. The quality in the story has been good. And now you got somebody who is, in many people's eyes, the Michael Jordan of professional wrestling, helping to really like call the shots. And I'm excited to see where they take this in the next few years, especially with the Netflix deal coming and seeing where the future of how we consume wrestling changes when we're not all tuning in on USA Network, we're all getting on streaming apps to watch it. Like, it's just going to be really interesting to see how this whole thing sort of evolves. And I think WrestleMania 40 and WrestleMania 40 weekend is really going to start the domino effect of an even bigger renaissance in sports entertainment and professional wrestling.
Yeah, and Kaz, my last question for you, and I understand if you have to be slightly careful answering this because you've worked with all these people, but the way they've kind of flipped Mania, right? Where we thought it was going to be at the Rumble, then where we thought it wasn't going to be, and now where it is. Do you think that happens, or this flip, this switch back? Do you think that happens if we are in the previous regime?
I don't know, man. I do not know. I don't think that's a question I could truly answer, but I will say this. The Rock is the people's champion in kayfabe and in for real.
Right.
And I do believe that, me personally, at the Royal Rumble or when The Rock first showed up and his Netflix thing started, I always said, all right, you get Rock Roman, the first Netflix on Monday Night Raw, that's how you do it. You don't necessarily force or push this thing into the forefront. And I don't think it's really forced because I think this Roman and Rock story does sort of predate Cody. So like everybody sort of has, like, nobody's wrong here, right? Like, yes, people do want to see Cody finish his story, especially after his debut in Dallas and the promo he cut that Monday and pretty much stating his mission statement in the WWE. And ever since then, it was like, oh wow, like not only did Cody leave WWE, he helped legitimately make the wrestling business healthier than it was. He's made himself a star, and throughout, by hook or by crook, he maintained his babyface status as the perfect guy to go up against the ultimate heel in Roman Reigns. So like that story, his father, Roman, just sort of being this murder, death, kill end boss that has been running roughshod over the company for almost 3 years now, makes all the sense in the world. However, when you have The Rock and you have his influence and you have the ability to do as much as you can with him just being involved, you strike with that iron is hot. Now, obviously, if you saw Rock on McAfee before this whole thing happened, he said that this was supposed to happen last year. Like they were locked in to do Rock Roman last year. And I think, I think you have good problems if you're the WWE, right?
For sure.
You have very good problems. You have a ready-made sort of homemade, but I guess we could say homemade because he started in WWE star, ready to take the mantle as your new John Cena. And it's not divisive like it was John Cena. At least right now, it's not divisive. Like everybody wants to see this dude Cody Rhodes do well. On the other side, you have this guaranteed sellout in any stadium on planet Earth main event ready made for you that can use the title or doesn't need the title, right? So I think the happy problems that you have is, like I said, and like what was told to me when I worked at WWE, the big catchphrase that was always repeated to me when I was pitching something was, what about Monday? What happens Monday? You can have the big moment on Sunday night. You can have the big pay-per-view moment, but what the hell happens Monday? Having The Rock be involved, having Cody have this groundswell of support, and still having Roman, who I think everybody is like sort of like writing off and getting ready to see him like go and do other things, but it's like Roman's not really gone. Like, he's not going anywhere. Like, he's not done, right? Like, he's not like he's in his 50s and everyone's like, all right, let's get the old geezer out the way. Like, Roman is he's very much in his prime. So everybody just waiting for this new Cody era to start. Like, I'm not necessarily sure if it's gonna start after WrestleMania, right? Like, I'm kind of 50-50 on if Cody or Roman is gonna win this match. But I'll say this, the WWE has great problems. And I guess under the previous regime, I'm not necessarily sure we don't continue with Rock Roman, because I think there's a small part of me that believes that maybe these fans might have put Cody in an unforeseen situation where he might end up getting effed over because of it, right? Like, there was a path I think that could have started at the Royal Rumble, that you could have got Rock Roman, you could have had Cody finishing this story, and you could have had, you know, all these great things happen without the sort of like, oh my God, we gotta shuffle the decks, right? I think CM Punk's injury played a part into it. I think personally, there was a way to get the title off of Roman without him losing with Randy Orton. I think you could have done a Cody and Randy Orton story that was actually probably make more sense as the history is being told between the two, and Randy as the world champion. But then you'd have people that would say, well, Cody never really got his get back from Roman last year and cheating and all that type of stuff. So I understand that. But there's definitely opportunities that I think everyone could have been happy. But it's not like they're suffering right now. I think tickets are doing pretty well. I think people are still watching. I think records are being broken weekly. So I think sometimes us as fans or people that consume the wrestling product on the internet or just through social media and type of stuff, I think a lot of times we're guilty of having a picture in our head of what it's supposed to be like,
Right.
instead of just enjoying or just like watching what's going to happen and just taking a ride with everyone. So I am taking my own advice. I'm taking the ride. I'm seeing where they're going with it. And me personally, I've enjoyed every single bit of it.
And, you know, to do a corny radio thing here, to bring back something you said earlier, they got the fans right now asking, what about Monday, right? What about Monday? We're all asking that every single week, because it seems like it's just must-see TV right now, and it's a beautiful thing. And like you said, is, you know, to bring it back, to bring in what about Monday, it feels like they're not going to have any issue continuing after WrestleMania all the way to SummerSlam through the end of the year. So as a wrestling fan for my whole life, and the majority of wrestling fans around the world, we're in a very, very, very good place. And that was just talking about WWE. We don't have enough time to get into, you know, AEW and everything else that's happening around the world. But Kaz, man, this has been an absolute blast. One of the brightest, best minds in the wrestling world and in hip hop and in the culture in general. So for you to take the time that you did to speak with us, man, it's truly an honor. And I'm looking forward to linking up in Philly. That's going to be a time. And why don't you let everybody know where, because we still got WaleMania tickets available, correct?
Yeah, but they're almost gone, man. They're flying. And we haven't even announced the Masked Man Show live podcast guests. We haven't announced a lot of big things I think are gonna are gonna increase the interest in WaleMania. So I'll keep that to ourselves. I still got some announcements to make, but you can get your WaleMania tickets on AXS.com. It's at the Franklin Music Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Thursday, April 4th, 7 p.m. We got Corey Towns DJing, incredible DJ, son of DJ Jazzy Jeff, coming back to Philadelphia, gonna tear that place up. Gigi Rosa, one of the best nightclub DJs in New York City, DJ, and of course DJ Money from the DMV. My gosh, my guy Tommy Carlucci, incredible DJ from Connecticut, who also works at WWE. So we're gonna have some really fun times doing some stuff with them over there. But obviously, we've got some incredible guests. Let me just run through them and shout them out before I forget them. We got Lil Bacon Bear from the DMV pulling up, Trey Miguel, Effie, the Tonga Twins, Metaphor, Jakar Jackson, Lash Legend, Noam Dar, Aura Menta, my guy Cornell G from WWE 2K, Myron Reed, Samantha Irvin, Ricochet, Shasta McKenzie, We got Connie Diamond performing out of the BX. My boy Van Lathan, the #1 voice in all of wrestling media, will be pulling up and kicking it with us. 3-0 Black is performing. My guy Omos will be in the building. MVP will be in the building. AJ Francis will be in the building and perform. And Angelo Dawkins. We got many, many, many more guests to announce. Many more guests that are confirmed that I'm keeping as a surprise. But of course, our guest of honor, Shelton Benjamin, will be there as well. Headlined by Wale and Friends concert at the end of the night. Get your tickets now. And please, I can't wait to see everybody in Philadelphia. I'll be doing a lot of things throughout the entire week as well at WWE World with Fanatics and all this type of stuff. So if you don't catch me at WaleMania, I'm sure I'll see lots of folks throughout the week during WrestleMania week. So catch me there. You catch me on the Ultimate Show on Peacock on WWE. We're actually filming the Ultimate WrestleMania episode tomorrow with 2 huge special guests that I won't spoil now, but you'll see when we record it, and it's airs the week of WrestleMania. You can catch it on Peacock. And always check us out on the Masked Man Show in Ringer, and catch me on Count It on Fanatic Sportsbook in New York City, man.
You can get Kaz anywhere you look. You turn left, you see Kaz, right, Kaz.
It's got to be like the 2 doinks running around. There's got to be 2 Kazes running around.
There's got to be 2 Kaz, man. I refuse to believe it. Who's the real Sting? Who is the real Sting? That's what we need to find out right now.
The real Sting is my wife. She's the reason I'm allowed to do all this other stuff. She's the
Smart
real MVP.
I think we can all agree with that, Kaz. We all are backed by very powerful women in our lives.
You know, Kaz, that's right.
Thank you, brother. You are the man, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, bro.
All right, brothers.